I begin today by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, traditional custodians on the land on which I am located today. I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders present online today. So welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Lorraine Cherney. I'm Deputy Director here at ANZSOG. My main job is really looking after the NRCoP and the Professional Regulator Program. I'm a massive regulatory nerd, so you are in safe company and safe hands today. My colleague for the presentation today is Professor Kate Henne, and she is Director of RegNet at the Australian National University School of Regulation and Global Governance. Her research is concerned with how science and technology are changing approaches to governance, with a focus on how regulation can be leveraged to promote health, public safety and well-being. Today, we are going to be using the Q&A function in Zoom. Feel free to send us through your questions and we'll do our very best to answer these. Myself and Kate will take you through a presentation of the Professional Regulator Foundation Program, and we'll give you a sneak peek into the modules and the seminar program. So I'm now going to ask my colleague Shannon, who's online with us, to pop into the chat a couple of stories that we have, a couple of news and media articles that we have on the Professional Regulator Program, and these will be available for you. And we'll also put into the chat a stakeholder engagement kit, and this is a fabulous resource which will take you through lots of components about the program, and it's directed at you as a potential participant. It is also directed at different parts of your organization, so people who are interested in enrolling, from HR or people who are responsible for training. So it's a fabulous resource. So we will put that into the chat as well, and it will be there for you to access after you have finished listening to this enthralling conversation that we'll have for you today. We'll leave around about 20 minutes, 20, maybe even 30 minutes towards the end for Q&A. We will love to have your questions, and we look forward to being able to answer them as best as we possibly can. So I'm going to start the presentation with some slides, and then my colleague Kate will take over, and then we will have the Q&A. So just bear with me as I navigate the technology. The National Regulators Community of Practice, we have around about 7,000 members, and we identified a clear need for high quality training for the regulatory community. And this was very much driven by a bottom-up approach to building content and the format for this program. We did a survey of our members. We did an environmental scan of what existing training was available, and we established working groups, which consisted of very senior regulators and also frontline regulatory officers and staff. And we built the program from the ground up. We had 6 working groups, which matched one per module. And it was fantastic to be part of that process and see the regulators bring really fantastic content and content that we were able then to use for the case studies, both in the main program and then also in the seminar program as well. We have a fabulous relationship and a partnership with RegNet at the Australian National University, which has just taken this program to the next level, and it's something that we're all incredibly proud of. So we anticipate that we will have 4 levels to this program. So we have the foundation program at the moment and another 3 levels, so extension, expert and leader. We initially started with a pilot or an inaugural cohort of 100 members, and that was offered to our corporate members of the NRCoP who had supported us during the build of this program, which was very long, but very enjoyable, but it had its moments. And those 100 participants went through, and they went through the program in great detail. And we needed to make sure that what we had built was fit for purpose, both for now and into the future. And they did a fantastic job, and we got great feedback from them. And then we opened the program proper in mid this year in July, and we have well over 800 regulators currently in the program. And work will start early next year as we look to build and work out where we go next with this in terms of the extension expert and leader, and that work will start early next year. There will be no slacking off or rest for this project team, that is for sure. There's an awful lot to be done in this space. So the foundation program has six modules and six modules in it. We look at who regulates and why, licensing as regulation, understanding and achieving compliance, using information to regulate, regulatory communication, and regulatory professionalism and ethics. So we're just going to let you have a little bit of a peek inside the program now to give you a little bit of an idea of what the program looks like from a user perspective. So when you come into the program, we use different modes throughout the program to communicate with our learners. And here's an example here of 2 videos that we will use. So the first one is a welcome to this module. And then the second one we have here is we often hear people talk about a regulatory toolkit, and this lets you delve inside it. So this is an example of 2 videos that we would have. And then we're looking at what exactly does government regulators, what do we do? Well, here's a whole list of things that we might do. We might educate and inform, we might authorize, prohibit, support, restrict. There's a massive amount of work there that government regulators do. And you can see there's a little box there, there's a little tick that you can hover over, and it will expand and provide you with more information on each of those topics that to give you more information on what government regulators do. So looking at module 2, so licensing as regulation. You go into the course. I've got a license, fantastic. Well, is that a license or is that a permit? Or maybe she's on a register. It looks like an accreditation to me. The idea here is communication and language really, really matter. They're incredibly important. And this course does this really well. As regulators, we often talk in a particular way, which can sometimes sound quite foreign to another regulator. And we need to get better at communicating with each other so that we are better able to understand that what we are all doing is regulating. We may be regulating in different regulatory domains, but we are all regulating. This course does this incredibly well. In module 2, we also use case studies. Here's an example here from New South Wales Health, and we will talk you through where you can go to find particular pieces of information and how you can read it, and then we will use that as a case study. And then into module 3, understanding and achieving compliance. And this module is really good at saying, well, what does that actually mean? What do we mean by saying we are compliant? Is it meeting a minimum standard? Is there a line? Is that what it means? Is it managing a risk? Is it reducing harms? Is it simply ticking a box on a form? I suppose really position and definition is really, really important in this from this point. I'm going to pass over to my colleague Kate, and she's going to take it from here. So just bear with me as I stop sharing. Just one second, please.
And Lorraine, as you do that, I might do a bit of a transition. So as you can see from what Lorraine's described so far, they are online modules, but they're designed in a way to encourage interaction, to facilitate different kinds of critical thinking, and to really ensure you have those foundations. So I'll play from the current slide from where we are in terms of mid-module 3. So with module 3, as Lorraine's just described, we're really thinking about understanding and achieving compliance and really using an applied example to help colleagues taking the course really think through those steps. So not see compliance as something that's an either or, certainly that's the outcome, but a process by which we work to achieve it. And so we try to build in these really applied, and you'll notice lighthearted examples to help guide participants through the course. In terms of module 4, and again, we're scaffolding up, starting with the foundations and moving to more advanced things that you would use in a foundation level course. So this is using information to regulate, a really key and foundational component to regulating, but something that we don't always talk about in depth. So in this slide, we'll talk about auditing, powers during an investigation, but all these different examples are used to really emphasize the foundations of achieving high quality and good data and information, and then how you would use and mobilize it in practice. Module 5 looks at regulatory communication. So again, building on the foundations of information, again, an essential role of contemporary regulation. So here we use some different kinds of examples where we can learn from different contexts. So in cases where we have really clear and disturbing challenges that are urgent and time sensitive, so we need to adapt our communication strategies. We also learn from some best practice examples in this module, and also some that you could think of as not as effective, or even regulatory failures, and how adjustments to communication could really affect the outcomes for a regulator. And then also how you work towards improving communication after those challenges. So again, very applied, but distilling some key ideas from the literature so that they can be used in practice. Our last module then concludes by thinking through the really core elements of being a professional regulator, and ethics, of course, is essential to that. And to do that in the last session, we really focus on some really applied case studies. So we can talk about ethics in the abstract, but obviously as a regulator, you're working through different contexts, different circumstances, different type of people and organizations that are being regulated. And so we provide some really hands-on grounded case studies for participants to work through and think through in different ways. So as you can see from this example, there are 3 very distinctly different case studies, all with clear ethical dimensions to work through. So that's the first part, the foundation modules of the online component. And upon completing those, participants will receive a professional badge. And you can see on this slide, the foundation badge, which we've developed. And as Lorraine has spoken about already, we have the extension, the expert and leader under development. So it will be a full sequence that builds upon each other. That said, online education is terrific because it's flexible, it's interactive, but it can sometimes be very isolating in a solo endeavor. And you can learn different things in an online environment, but you want to meet peers and discuss the nitty-gritty of what you've gotten out of those. Maybe there's questions. Maybe there's something that's happened in your organization that you want to speak through. Maybe it would just be nice to talk to other regulators for once, rather than being, siloed. And so we've built that into the program as well with live seminars. And these are facilitated by a range of experts. We have PhD scholars from RegNet, academics from RegNet, professional regulators at different stages of their career and in different domains, facilitating these sessions with peers so people can share what they've learned, reflect on their own practice, and then think through how can we really work towards best practice, especially given the complexities that we manage as regulators. So here's a mapping of those seminars. We have 6. They're designed in a way to really align with each of the modules. So there's an expectation that you would finish the module and then later on enroll in a seminar. Now we understand life is tricky and you can't always just immediately do a module and then follow it up with a live seminar. So there's rolling opportunities to register for the seminars. And I'll just walk you through those seminars so that you can see that they are complementary to each phase of the modules that we've introduced. So again, at that first phase, when they're the introductory phase, we talk about how you use regulatory tools, complementing that first module. Then talking about what it is to be a frontline regulator and the processes attached to that. Again, re-emphasizing in seminar 3 how to understand and achieve compliance. And it's not necessarily either or endeavor, but a process. 4, again, reinforces questions about information and stakeholder engagement is clearly a core component of that. Regulatory communication following, and then summarizing again how professionalism and ethics, are a core part of our regulatory relationships. And again, we're happy to take more questions on this in Q&A if they arise. So in addition to the live seminar, and I think Lorraine mentioned this earlier in our presentation, that we sometimes use language that not other people don't know, either the people that we regulate and work with or fellow regulators. And so part of this foundations course is really making sure there's a solid glossary of terms that you can come back to, revisit, think about critically as you go through the modules, or just refresh your memory as you go along the journey through the modules. We've designed that in collaboration with Dr. Grant Pink, a wonderful colleague who has a book that we've used to adapt so that there are clear definitions and food for thought as you go through the modules. So that's a summary of what, a very quick summary that we can talk about more in Q&A, but I guess others on the call were probably curious, like, what is this? How much does it cost? And so here's an overview of the structure of its delivery. So costs are here. Obviously, corporate members receive a discount. These are current rates. Non-members, we ask, in recognition that they are non-members, to pay a little bit more. Right now, you're able to do the course over the course of 12 months. You have 6 online modules and a program of 6 seminars to go with it. You have a full year to do it and complete it. So there's lots of flexibility built in the course, but it is scaffolded in a way to build upon itself. So it's a journey from the beginning to the end of the 6 modules, and one that future learning will build upon. So I think that is where we end in terms of our summary. We've wanted to leave lots of time for Q&A. It's a bit of a crash course, but it should be a fun discussion, and we both look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. I'll have a quick look to see if we have some questions through here. I think as I'm looking to find the questions, Kate, a question that we always get asked, and I'll throw to you on this one, even though I already know the answer, is can we start at any time, or do we have to wait for a specific date in which we need to enroll?
Yeah, which is a terrific question. And the course has been designed to deliver that flexibility. So because the modules are online and asynchronous, we can facilitate starting at practically any time once enrollment and payment has happened. The other dimension, though, with the seminars is because we want to facilitate a shared learning environment, they're offered on a rolling basis. So they will need to be scheduled. They tend to be scheduled on Tuesdays and Wednesdays of a week. And we really try to facilitate a diverse collective of regulators in those sessions. So that requires a bit more scheduling, but again, it's very easy and they're offered on a rolling basis.
Right. We have another question here about the seminars and whether they are mandatory or whether you've got a choice in them. Essentially, the modules are compulsory. You should do module 1, then 2, right through to 6. The seminars are optional, but we strongly encourage that you will get the absolute most out of this course if you do the full package. And your organization may want to strongly encourage their staff as well to do and attend all the seminars. And Kate, given that your colleagues at RegNet are running the seminars, would you like to share some information about what a potential learner would get from attending the seminars, please?
Of course, that's terrific. So the seminars kind of serve a twofold function. The one is to really share and reflect and ask questions of the facilitator. So we make sure we all have regulatory experts in the room facilitating. So if there are points of clarification, you can get them from an expert. But the I think the real value is the shared and collaborative peer learning that's facilitated in those sessions. So there will be some slides, but it's certainly not a lecture. The slides are there to guide people through a discussion, usually grounded by additional case studies that NRCoP has helped us develop. And so it's really, I think, the value add of the program is letting you learn from others and you know, obviously an expert in the room, but we all have lots of different forms of expertise, and really shared collaborative learning, I think, is one of the strengths of the program.
And Kate, if I'm not mistaken, as the learner goes through the modules, they are required to keep, I would say, a diary, but it's a reflection piece.
Yes.
And they are then required to bring that to the seminar module, or the seminar program as well, where you could you maybe tell us a bit about what might be in that that diary or that reflection, please, Kate?
No, that's a great question, Lorraine. And when we say diary, maybe I should preface it as it can be a journal, it can be a sheet of paper. We understand people might be doing this from work, but also be doing it from home and managing other obligations. So we really strongly encourage a reflective piece as you go through the modules, keeping track of, you know, did I understand something, or do I want more information about a particular issue? Does this directly affect my practice or not? And helping people journal that so you can bring it to the seminars for discussion. So, you know, if people don't feel comfortable sharing that information, that's absolutely fine. A reflective journaling practice, especially in adult education, is a key way of not only learning, you know, from the modules, but digesting the information you've received.
Thank you. There's a question here about whether we are considering micro-credentials for either the foundation course or future iterations of the other levels, Kate?
Right now, that's a discussion point. The micro-credential market is slightly different and doesn't enable the flexibility that this current program does. And we really want to make sure the program, this foundations course and future ones, can really satisfy the needs and desires of a wide range of regulators. So that's a really excellent question, but it's one that's a work in progress, because we want to make sure we're providing a service for the wide range of regulators across our jurisdictions, and not narrowing it down around a credential that may not let us actually teach what we really need to learn as regulators.
And personally, I absolutely love seeing on LinkedIn people posting their badges of completion. I get an absolute kick out of seeing that. I think it's wonderful to see that, and yeah, it's fabulous. It gives me such a kick to see that. So there's a question here on the duration of 12 months. Is it an estimate time for people working full time with family responsibilities? Essentially, a really good way to think of the time period for doing the program is to use a regulatory term like a license. So you have access to the program for 12 months. And during that time, you have your license with which you can use to complete your 6 modules, and if you choose, which we would hope you would, to do your 6 seminars as well. That should be plenty of time given the content and the demands. It absolutely caters for people who are working part-time, people with caring responsibilities. It's training which is absolutely catering for regulators who are in remote and regional locations. This is what this program does incredibly well. So I would encourage you to think of it like a license, and you can, you know, you've got plenty of time there with that 12 months. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Kate, or is that?
No, it's a terrific response, Lorraine. And we do encourage everyone to take their time with it. You know, I can see you've got a window of time that you want to go through it quickly. Maybe you have time off work, but we've seen so far in the initial cohorts that taking the time to go through them and really digest them has been a more rewarding educational experience.
Absolutely. And another thing which gives me a kick, and I don't see this as a question, but I'm going to answer it all the same. Another thing that gives me a kick is some very senior regulator friends of mine who attempt to jump straight to the knowledge quiz or the assessment piece, only to find that they do in fact need to do the course. So that absolutely gives me a kick, and I love hearing that, where they have to eat a little bit of humble pie and actually do the work. So fantastic. So Kate, when do we think the next levels will be ready? Have you got an answer for that?
Oh, I wish I could answer that. And that's Lorraine and I, well, we should say this has been a true collaboration between our organizations, which has brought so much joy because we've learned so much from each other, but it does mean we do need to work through material together. Lorraine constantly reminds me, look, that's a great theory and practice, but let's really think about how that operates on the ground. So the development process for the next phase is starting next year, but as they are different levels, we want to first make sure we really get robust feedback from this one to make sure our pedagogy is right, our pitch is right, that we're actually attending to what different regulators need. And then together, we're going to really build out those next sessions. So that's a bit of a cop-out. I'm sorry. But please know we're already thinking about it. We're working on it. And the final product will be worth the wait.
Absolutely. Well answered, Kate. I couldn't have done it better myself. So there's a question here about whether the seminar should be taken before or after the modules. So there is a requirement that for the modules should be done before you turn up to your seminars. So you should be doing, I believe it's modules 1, 2, and 3 before you register to attend the seminars. That is so that you're across the materials, and so that you're sitting in an online seminar room with your peers who are also across the materials, and also that the coordinator or the facilitator, the person who's running that seminar has everyone at the same level, and that provides the maximum amount of benefit for everybody in that seminar. So that's the order that, and we know regulators like order and doing things in a particular order. That is the order. So modules and then seminar. Okay, so great question here. So for the currently designed course, is it designed for staff who are on the ground regulators, or is it designed for management and leadership? I would absolutely love to answer this, but I'm going to throw to Kate first of all.
Please add more to my response. I mean, it is a foundations course, but I don't mean it's foundations in terms of the level of progression in your career per se, but foundations in terms of making sure everyone's across foundational core regulatory practices. And I think at any level that's valuable. I mean, I'm a director of a school and I still learn, and have worked in this field for 20 years, and I still learned a lot developing the material with NRCoP colleagues. So it is a foundations course, and we would encourage folks who want to explore a regulatory career to do that before even thinking about the career. It gives you the foundations, whether you're at the base of your career or more advanced. But I think there's learning for anyone in this course, the way it's designed.
Yeah, so I would agree. I would challenge any regulator to do this course and not learn something. My background is in gambling regulation, and when I was designing, as I call it, the bones for this course, the last module that I approached was the one that I knew least amount on, and that was the communications module. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to do the most work on this because it's what I know least about. And when I finished creating the bones for that module, and then when I held the working groups with the regulators, it's probably one of the modules that I feel most proud of because I learned the most from it. And I came away with a newfound respect for people who work in regulatory comms, because it's such a key component of the work that regulators do. You cannot do regulation without comms. So I would say that the course is for everyone. And I would encourage those very senior regulators to do the course and to potentially think they can jump ahead to the to the knowledge test, eat a little bit of humble pie and come back and do the course proper. Like my very senior friend in regulation, the story I told earlier. So I would say the course is for everyone. Okay. So for staff who job share or work part-time, the seminars may not be available if they do not work at the start of the week. Is there any scope for different days and for seminars? So I'll throw to Kate on this one, who can talk about the cycles of the seminars. Over to you, Kate.
Yeah, so the sequencing of the seminars has been something that I think we're still working through in some ways. We've tried to build in the most flexibility for people trying to do it during working hours so it doesn't affect, childcare responsibilities or other kinds of responsibilities. Right now, it's Tuesday, Wednesday for the next cycle. We've gotten the most positive feedback from that kind of scheduling. We've brainstormed some other alternatives that haven't worked out in the same ways, but we really appreciate that feedback. I suppose one thing that might be helpful to know in terms of planning is it is on Tuesdays and Wednesdays right now, a morning slot and an afternoon slot, but they're publicized far, far in advance. So there would be opportunities to develop a schedule around it. And they're not we're trying to avoid school holidays across jurisdictions and other kinds of commitments. So we're hoping we can balance the flexibility by letting everyone know well in advance when the seminars are open. But we really appreciate that comment, and that's something we can continue to work on if that proves to be a large scale challenge.
Okay. So there's a question here. If someone is not already in a professional regulatory role, can you give a sense of what kind of professional opportunities would be available if one was to undertake this course? Okay, Kate?
Lorraine, I'm going to really throw it back to you, but
Are you?
So many, possibilities. In a professional one of the goals of the course is to really produce a foundation, because we really lack it in the field. RegNet offers different forms of education at the postgraduate level, but that foundational accreditation is something we haven't had until date. So that's really the goal of this, and to have it widely recognized across domains. I would say it actually has foundational skills for any kind of either public service, and even I would say corporate role as well. Communication is important, working with relationships, thinking about different stakeholders and how they influence each other, thinking about compliance. So I would say it has wide appeal. But Lorraine, you work much more closely with the NRCoP. You've co-designed the case studies with them to get a wide range of domains captured. So you probably can answer further develop that question or answer.
Yes. So for someone who's currently not working in regulation and is considering a job in regulation, I say jump now, go after that job in regulation. It is, you will get hooked. It is a fantastic career to be in. And I have never looked back from when I accidentally fell into this many moons ago. The types of jobs that I think essentially where I see this foundations program sitting is eventually we will have people coming for jobs, and this will be sitting on their CVs, and we will have employers looking for this particular training when they are recruiting. So within the National Regulators Community of Practice within the NRCoP, we have around about 7,000 members. And I jokingly describe our members as, being on a bit of a spectrum, just to describe the breadth of regulators that we work with. So on one end of the spectrum, we would have regulators who look after mine safety. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we will have regulators who look after early childhood regulation. And you think, wow, where's the connection here? What do these guys have in common? They're regulators. They're actually doing the same type of work. You just wouldn't, if you don't know regulation, you just wouldn't think that they're doing the same type of work, So for me, this training is a way of so what I was going to say is that if you think back to where this course originated from, it originated from this broad spectrum of regulators within the NRCoP community. That's 7,000 regulators going, we need training. We need training that connects us and binds us together. And what we currently have out there is not serving its purpose. So let's build it. So I really strongly believe that members within our community, which is a hell of a lot of members, are going to start looking for this when they are recruiting. Do you currently have it? Are you a member of the NRCoP? Have you been offered the training? Can you get it? I personally think this is where we will be going with this training. In terms of careers, the breadth of things you can do in regulation. I mentioned regulatory comms because I believe that if there's a regulatory disaster, the one thing that you have to get right are your comms. You need to get out in front of the problem, but even in terms of comms, you need to have things ready and waiting to go before any disaster hits. You've got inspectors, you've got auditors, you've got people that work in the policy part of it as well. There is the jobs in regulation are so wide and so varied and incredibly exciting, says the regulatory nerd. If you're considering a job in regulation, you should absolutely go for it. It's and you should check out the resources on the NRCoP website. We've got plenty of resources and plenty of webinars there that you can hear from a wide range of regulators talking about how fantastic their jobs are. Yeah. So, okay. There's another, we've got a couple more questions here about the seminars, whether they're recorded. They are not recorded. The seminars, like if you think back to your tutorials, perhaps at uni, that kind of thing, you know, the flavor of the seminar will really depend on who's in the room at the time. I can see Kate nodding at me. The really great component or the really great aspect about the seminars is that if you're really lucky, you can have such a mix of people in the seminar with you. You could have, so my background being gambling regulation, I might have people who also do gambling regulation, but from another jurisdiction. And then I might have some really, really senior regulators, and then I might have frontline regulatory officers in the room as well. And every single person will bring a different perspective, and they will look at a problem in a different way. And that's just fascinating. And that's really where you get that fantastic way of thinking about issues and problems. And Kate, I'm going to throw to you here because you're able to talk more about the real richness of what they can get from the seminars. I'll throw over to you, Kate.
Yeah, that's Lorraine, that's a great illustration of how they work. And having been in some of those seminars and seen and reflected with the facilitators, I think we think of it as collaborative learning rather than just, as Lorraine said, it's more tutorial style, but it's not even that. It's really recognizing that everyone's expertise and experience can really enhance our knowledge base. So it's, yes, we want to make sure you understand the concepts. And of course, time is set aside to make sure folks can ask questions. But the richness of it is precisely as Lorraine has said, bringing different perspectives together so we can build a better shared knowledge base to really professionalize ourselves as regulators, even if you're working across different roles and in different jurisdictions. So it is really meant to be not just a learning experience, but also a peer networking experience as well. So people will meet different folks in different seminars, but you will also connect up again later on throughout the durations if you're taking it at different times.
And there has been, I have heard some feedback that some of the participants in the seminars have been very, very keen to keep those connections going with their peers, because I think I give the example of being a student at uni. I never sat in a seminar where I would have been considered an expert. Never. I was never that much of a diligent student. But in this case, these seminars, the participants or students, whatever terminology you want to use here, are all experts. I mean, I am glad I'm not facilitating that class, that's for sure. But everybody sitting in there are experts in regulation in one shape or another, you know, depending on the role that they're doing, depending on the sector that they come from. I mean, what a rich source of data. I'd love to be sitting at the side, maybe with a notebook taking notes, but purely from an observational perspective. But yeah, it would be absolutely fascinating to be in there.
Yeah, and Lorraine, maybe just to add to that, because we've got active case studies that people are working through together, you know, you learn something new from the case studies based on who's in the room as well. So we might think there's key lessons from, say, a regulatory failure, but someone else might bring something new out in that. So it is an ongoing, really dynamic process of learning.
Yeah, so there is a question here on case studies. My segues are usually not this smooth, but here we go. Does the course consider case studies from a range of jurisdictions to inform the best practice approach? So in terms of case studies, I'll take you back to when we originally built the program, and we had so we have six modules, and we had 6 working groups, and each of the working groups had representatives from a broad spectrum across regulatory rules, regulatory domains, and also the jurisdictions. So and part of that was working on the content that would go into the modules, but also they were also looking at appropriate case studies that could be used in the program for teaching purposes. So, for example, if we're looking at, if we go to the regulatory comms one, well, this is what we might look at regulatory comms, and we go, okay, well, these are the types of information that we would need to contain in this module on regulatory comms. But how can we illustrate this, and how can we convey this to the learners in a really meaty case study that will assist someone who's got no idea about what regulatory comms. So I might be an inspector working out in the field, and I might be located in the regions, and I know nothing about regulatory comms. How am I going to relate to this module? So if I'm looking at the list of 6 modules, you're going to do what I did initially, which is go, that one's too hard, I'm going to leave that one to the end. So how do we get this information about regulatory comms to relate to that inspector who thinks that's got nothing to do with me, or that's too hard? So what those working group participants did, and they did so well, was help provide the case studies from such a broad spectrum across the country, things that people could relate to, and in a really great way to. So we've got such a broad range of case studies in there that cover different jurisdictions, different types of regulation, different types of communication, and lots of different types of regulatory domains as well. So Kate, have you anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think you've covered it beautifully.
Thank you. I think we're getting through the questions quite well here. So there's a question here on future modules and whether they will have a focus on policy development. Kate, I'm going to throw to you on that one.
So it's something we've discussed as we've begun to develop what the sequence might look across the modules and those different levels that we're developing. I think it will have to feature somewhere in the middle and perhaps at the farther end. We haven't yet gotten into it in depth. We are going to do wider consultation as we develop those modules as well. So I have a sense we will get that kind of feedback, which will prompt us to develop later iterations to reflect that. But at this time, it's something we've discussed, but we haven't fully developed. We're doing the modules sequentially at the moment, so we haven't yet fully developed what that exactly will look like at this time. So I'm sorry I can't provide more information on that.
Okay. And there's a question here on the estimated hours required for the modules. So this will vary, and it's around about 90 minutes, correct, Kate, that we have per module. Some people will take longer and some people will go through it much quicker. It's probably safe to assume around about 90 minutes, possibly up to 2 hours per module. I think that's a reasonable time frame for that.
Yes, and of course, interruptions might happen and you might need to come back to it. So just to note that it is 90 minutes of dedicated learning, and, you know, interruptions happen. That's one of the benefits and trade-offs of online education, but it is a 90-minute dedicated time slot, and it can be up to 2 hours.
And you can, it's with it being online, you can save your materials and come back to the same spot, which is really good. So with the structure of the course, is it possible for people to attend Extension Expert Leader before the foundation program? If I had it here, perhaps we haven't got those levels ready yet. But we would be anticipating that those that would be looking to do leader could go straight into doing the leader. But the mapping for the other levels will happen early next year when the project team meets. I think we're getting through these quite well here. Will it benefit your career progression? Absolutely. And another question here, Kate, on the seminar scheduling during the year, particular months. You might be able to speak about the scheduling and the cycle.
Yeah, so the target is we'll do 6-week cycles. They may not be back to back, anticipating holidays and things like that. So the scheduling is responsive to what the overall annual calendar looks like. So the next round of seminars won't start till late January, recognizing that many people aren't in the office yet during that time. And so what we try to do is we project plan 6-month blocks at a time. We've got the roadmap out through June, and they are trying to be blocked in order. They'll be very clearly defined which seminar is live when. They're done together as a week by week. So you do 1 week, week 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And then it cycles again after a short break. So in terms of the scheduling, it's meant to be responsive to the annual calendar and not necessarily a rigid, we're going to go every 6 weeks, break every 6 weeks again.
And Kate, there's a question here which I think you should, I'm going to direct to you, about announcements or emails sent to those people who are currently enrolled in regards to when seminar dates are opening, to allow them to book into seminars. Do they receive emails or is it announcements on the website?
Yeah, we'll have it on both. So that'll be shared once you're enrolled. And the key point is being enrolled. So once you're active, you will get the updates.
Okay. So I think there's 2 questions left here, but I think we've already answered them, which is, will it benefit your career progression? Absolutely. And do the seminars have set dates? Those will be announced, Kate, they will on the Professional Regulator website. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So look, I would like to thank my colleague Kate here for being with me today. I absolutely love to thank Shannon for coming in and showing me where to press a button earlier when I couldn't. Thank you, Shannon. I'd like to thank you all for being with us today. I hope you got something from this. I will also like to direct you to the website, so the Professional Regulator website. It is www.professionalregulator.com.au. If you're interested in registering, you can self-enroll. We will take bulk enrollments, and there is a lot of ways in which you can part with your money to enroll in this course. But one thing I will tell you is that if you are interested in finding out more about the course, and if you would like, if you think that there's particular people within your organization who would benefit from having a talk with the NRCoP team here at ANZSOG, we are more than happy, and we do this on a regular basis, to join you in a team meeting or in a Zoom meeting, and we can run you through the course, run you through the costs, and answer whatever questions you have. And there's a full team of us here, and we are more than happy to do that. You can send us an email, and we can get that booked in probably next year, but there's still a wee bit of time left this year. You might be lucky and get us before the year's done. So look, I'd like to thank you all for being here today. There will be a recording of this made available, and there should be the resources on there as well. All our resources are on our ANZSOG website. I thank you all very much. Thank you, Kate, and enjoy having a break over the festive season. Thank you all very much. Bye now.